Cold War was a period of geopolitical tension between the United States and the Soviet Union and their respective allies following World War II. Lasting from 1947 to 1991, it was a struggle for global influence, fought not through direct military conflict between the two superpowers, but through proxy wars, espionage, political propaganda, and economic competition. While it's called a Cold War, it was anything but peaceful, as it shaped international relations for decades and almost led to nuclear catastrophe on several occasions. The origins of the Cold War lie in the ideological difference between the capitalist United States and the communist Soviet Union. After the defeat of Nazi Germany, both powers emerged as global superpowers with opposing visions for the post-war world. The United States promoted democracy and free markets, while the Soviet Union aimed to expand communism and exert control over Eastern Europe. These opposing ideologies led to an era of mistrust and rivalry, as each side feared the other's influence spreading across the globe. In Europe, the Iron Curtain was drawn as the Soviet Union expanded its control over Eastern European countries, creating satellite states like Poland, East Germany, and Hungary. Meanwhile, the United States and its Western European allies formed NATO in 1949 to counter the perceived Soviet threat. In response, the Soviet Union established the Warsaw Pact, creating two hostile blocs divided by both ideological and military power. The Cold War wasn't confined to Europe, however. In Asia, the Korean War, from 1950 to 1953, was one of the first major proxy wars of the conflict. The US backed South Korea, while the Soviet Union and China supported North Korea. The war ended in a stalemate, with the Korean peninsula remaining divided to this day. The Vietnam War, which saw the US fighting to prevent the spread of communism in Southeast Asia, was another brutal example of Cold War tensions turning into a hot conflict. Perhaps the most terrifying aspect of the Cold War was the nuclear arms race. Both the US and the Soviet Union developed vast arsenals of nuclear weapons, leading to a dangerous policy of mutually assured destruction. The idea was that if one side launched a nuclear attack, the other would retaliate, resulting in the complete annihilation of both. The Cuban Missile Crisis in 1962 brought the world to the brink of nuclear war when the US discovered Soviet nuclear missiles in Cuba. After tense negotiations, both sides stepped back, but the crisis underscored just how close the world came to disaster. In addition to military tensions, the Cold War was also fought through space exploration. The space race became a key battleground for demonstrating technological superiority. In 1957, the Soviets launched Sputnik, the first artificial satellite, and in 1961, Yuri Gagarin became the first human in space. The US responded by landing astronauts on the moon in 1969, a major propaganda victory. As Soviet leader Mikhail Gorbachev introduced reforms like glasnost and perestroika, aiming to open up Soviet society and revitalize its economy. These reforms, combined with internal economic struggles and mounting pressures from the US under President Ronald Reagan, led to the collapse of Soviet control in Eastern Europe. In 1991, the Soviet Union itself dissolved, marking the official end of the Cold War.